Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Mystery Witch School, another YouTube live stream. As I'm waiting to see if anybody comes on to the live today, just welcome to those of you watching the replay on the Mystery Witch School. What we do here is we talk about all things witchcraft, Wicca, tarot, and shadow work. And today I'm doing a combination of tarot and shadow work. If you want to know more about how you can learn witchcraft, if you want to start practicing witchcraft or Wicca, you just don't know where to start, I have a free masterclass called How to Start Your Witchcraft Practice. There is a link in the description field below this video. There is also a link in the description field below this video if you are wanting to learn how to read the tarot. I've just launched a new tarot course. It's called the Confident Tarot Reader, and this is pretty much a full course in learning how to read the cards, even if that's just for yourself, for friends and family, or if you're wanting to do it for other people. So I cover all of that in the course. The link to that is also in the description field below this video. So welcome to, hi Stephanie, and everybody else who's joining. Say hello in the chat if you want to say hello in the chat, and comment in the comments field if you're watching the replay to let me know how you use the tarot cards, if you do use the tarot cards for your shadow work, or just how you like to use your tarot cards in general. And also shadow work. How do you approach shadow work? Do you know how to approach shadow work? And what is shadow work? So I'm going to start off with getting straight into it now. And if you miss any of this, of course, you can always watch the beginning of the replay. Shadow work is, as I think originally, when we look at it from Carl Jung's perspective, it was really looking at those parts of ourselves that we're either denying within ourselves, that we see in everyone else, and we criticize in everyone else and judge in everyone else, but we don't believe that we have in ourselves, or that we do know we do have those qualities within ourselves, but we might feel guilt or shame around it. Maybe we've been guilted or shamed around having those qualities when we were growing up as kids. So we prefer to think that we don't exhibit them, or we try to suppress them and hide them. But shadow work over the years, when you start to look at it from perhaps more modern perspective, particularly in the self-development world of more sort of pop psychology, shadow work's kind of branched out, and it's really anything about ourselves that we don't know about, or that we have hidden from ourselves. And often the reason we hide these things from ourselves is because somewhere along the line when we were growing up, particularly in early childhood, we simply learned it wasn't safe to have these qualities. And a lot of these qualities are not qualities that we really would want to cultivate anyway, because they can have very negative repercussions for ourselves and others. It's just that we have to come to terms with the fact that as human beings, we have a light and a dark side. And if we're constantly running away from our dark side, then it's going to follow us everywhere we go. And it's going to cause trouble if we're not aware of it, and we don't understand why it's there and how we can work with it in a way that's positive and constructive, rather than negative and destructive as it often is. So when you think about shadow work, think about a beach ball, a big beach ball that you've taken into the water, and you're trying to hold it down under the water. And that's your shadow. It's the beach ball that you're holding down under the water. And of course, eventually you got to let go. And when you let go of that beach ball, it pops up out of the water. And that's what the shadow does when we're not aware of it. But there's two sides to the shadow as well. There's parts of ourselves that we're not embracing, that are really good positive qualities that we need in order to do what we came here to do in the world, to fulfill our purpose. And often we're holding those down as well, because again, in our upbringing and probably past lives as well, been led to believe that it's not safe to express those qualities. And so we're holding the good stuff back as well as the not so good stuff. And that's what often creates the dramas in our life, the inability to be able to do the things we want to do, have the success in our path, have the results of having that joy and happiness and that sense of feeling empowered and feeling that you are to some degree directing your life and able to be in flow with the way that your life goes. Life is about that combination of willing and surrendering at the same time. So it's about being able to ride the wave of life in a way that is more like dancing through life rather than kicking and screaming through life, which a lot of the time we do. So that's where shadow work comes in, and it's an awesome help. Hello, Kelly B. Great analogy with the beach ball and holding it underwater. Yes, it is a good analogy. Swak fan, merry meet. So yes, that's a pretty much what the shadow is like. When it comes to magic and or law of attraction, the shadow is really important because it's what often sabotages our magic and the results of our magic. And we can do like two people could do the exact same spell, exactly the same process. One will have success and the other won't. And then you might wonder, well, is it just one person's better at magic than the other person, or is there something else going on? And often it is to do with the beliefs and the perceptions that we have about ourselves and the world that sabotage the results of our magic. You know, when it comes to magic or law of assumption, law of attraction, whichever is your thing, or however you like to really call it, we have to be in the feeling of confidence that it's already happened and that it's achieved. And that's not an easy place to be. And if the shadow is or your ego is believing that that's not possible for you for whatever reason, then you're going to be holding back on allowing yourself to surrender to how it comes to you. So the active side of you might be out there willing your way through your magic, but the passive side of you, which is the receiving side of you, is going to be blocked. So you're not going to be able to receive the results of the magic, or go to open up to the experience of the magic having happened in reality. So shadow work is the place to start to look at things. It's not about beating yourself up, and it isn't about trying to become the perfect, wholesome person either, because that's just not possible here on planet Earth. It's we're here to have an experience and to know ourselves, know thyself, and that means shadow and all. And it's not a license either to just indulge in being the nasty side of the shadow either. It's looking at what the gifts are in the shadow and then using those in a way that is positive for you and other people. So when it comes to the tarot cards, the tarot has that beautiful connection to our psyche. And while historically, when we look at tarot in the popular culture or the popular understanding of tarot, it's all about you know, who's going to go on a trip somewhere and is this going to happen, and it's kind of a very sort of literal interpreting and divination perspective. The tarot, I think a lot through occultism anyway, really came into its own when it merged with the inner work, it merged with the psych work. And within the esoteric circles, tarot is very much about spiritual teachings. It's about being learning from the tarot and investigating ourselves and know thyself through the tarot. So rather than the tarot just being about, am I going to, go on a cruise next year? It's more about, yes, you could probably define it, use the tarot for that sort of thing, but there's so much more to the tarot than just telling people what's going to happen. And personally, I prefer to work with the tarot to help people learn about themselves so that they can then work on what might be stopping them from doing the things that they want to do. And that's the inner work. So, tarot for shadow work is just the perfect tool to use to help you connect to your subconscious mind. Because a lot of the time with shadow work, we know there's stuff going on, but we don't really know what it is, and it can be hard to access knowing what it is or even what we're supposed to do about it once we find out what it is. And so the tarot can just act as a prompt to connect us to what it is we're experiencing down under in the subconscious world and provide solutions. Tell us how do we get out of this? Uh, yes, 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 Stephanie. Yeah, let people know about your ASMR channel. Stephanie has an ASMR channel. Stephanie is from the Mystery Witch School Academy, and yeah, so yeah, if you want to do that, go for it. Okay, so there's different ways that you can come into doing your shadow work with the tarot. You can maybe try and find spreads. I know a lot of people get a bit bogged down with spreads and looking for the right spread, but really the right spread when it comes to shadow work is really just you knowing what it is that you want to know and just asking that question. Starting simple, keep it simple when it comes to shadow work. You don't need complex horoscope readings necessarily. You don't need to even touch the Celtic cross at all. It's really about keeping it simple, unless you want to go down the road of some of those different spreads and different books. Really feel into what is it, why am I coming to shadow work in the first place? What is it about where I am in my life right now that I'm wanting to investigate this and ask this question? And it might be something's going on for you that you're not happy about, or it might just be a feeling something's missing. Something's just missing. You know, everything thing seems to be going really well, but there's just that something that's missing. Or you just might be down. You might be feeling down. There might be a sense of helplessness, hopelessness, and you're wanting to get down there and find out, okay, what's really down there that's causing this feeling? Why am I feeling down? Why am I feeling what it is that I'm feeling? We usually come to this kind of work because we're not feeling good completely. No one, I think, has ever done shadow work because they're feeling all happy and good and dandy and having a real happy time. Generally, we come to shadow work because things just aren't going the way we'd like them to go. And so we're looking into how we might be causing that just simply because of our programming and how we can change that. So, one of the things that is a good place to start with the cards is to just simply ask the cards, what am I experiencing right now? Or why am I feeling what it is that I'm feeling? And what do I do about it? It can be that simple because deep down, that's really what we're wanting. We want to know what it is and we want to know what we can do about it so that we can fix it and we don't have to feel this way anymore. And so just being open and honest with the cards and just saying, this is what I want. So, what is it you want? I want to know what it is that's going on with me right now and what I need to do to feel better, or what is the best solution for me to progress from this in a positive way. Think about what you want to know because you already know the question to ask the cards. And this is for anything, even outside of shadow work. If you're wanting to do a reading about anything, you can just write down what you want to know. And it might be a series of different angles to the question that you want to know. And you can develop your own spreads that way so that they suit you, or they suit somebody you're working with. If you're working, doing shadow work or tarot coaching or consulting with other people, you could have your own go to spreads that you've created yourself. The tarot cards really do tell a story. And when we're dealing with the shadow, it's like a dream. Our dreams tell stories, and we learn what is going on in our psyche by analyzing our dreams and seeing what the dreams are telling us. And the tarot is the same. The tarot symbols on the cards are connected to our psyche. And so the tarot, like a dream, is telling a story. And like a dream, sometimes that story can be quite surreal and difficult to interpret and difficult to understand. So we go with what we feel when we're experiencing the dream in order to interpret it. So we go with what we feel when it comes to the tarot cards as well. So just recently, I did a short reading for somebody, and it was just a short, quick thing. 3 cards. I just used the 3 card approach, which I like. 3 is a great number for shadow work. If you work with Hecate, then 3 is a great number to work with. And when I do shadow work, a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, if I'm doing shadow work, I will work with Hecate because she's such a great deity to work with when it comes to shadow work. And it's just really as simple as, setting up your sacred space, um, astrally or physically, and inviting her in, just asking her to be present. And I spoke about this, I think, a couple of weeks ago about Hecate and shadow work and how to go about doing that in a live. So I have a look in the live section to see that one. And I just ask her to be present, and I ask her, "What do I need to know, and, what can I do about it?" And then I'll grab the cards, and I will ask the cards the same thing. And so for this example, so that's when I'm doing it for myself. And reading for other people too, I will often invoke Hecate, before reading, particularly if I know it's gonna be more shadow work reading, because I just find that she's so helpful for that. But if you're reading for yourself, uh, yeah, if you work with Hecate, ask her to be present, and she will help you get very clear about things. So back to the reading. So there was a 3 card reading, and the cards I've got here before me, I've got the Waite Smith deck. The actual reading originally was with the Mythic Tarot by Juliet Sharman Burke. So if you know that tarot deck, it's a beautiful deck, and the cards are different on that deck. Of course, the pictures are different because it's a different deck, and I always go by the pictures and what the pictures are saying. So for every deck, there's different nuances with the cards. So you might, if you've got a number of decks, like there's quite a few of them, and I know a lot of a lot of people in the craft have more than one deck. Use your intuition to pick your deck. Like, don't think too hard about which deck you're going to read today or which deck you're going to use today. Just instinctively reach for a deck and just allow your subconscious mind to choose the deck, because the pictures on the cards in that particular deck are going to be really helpful for the interpretation. But I don't have those cards with me in here. They're in another room. So I'm using the Waite Smith deck. So the first card that came up, and you might not be able to see it because of the light, was no, it's a light. It's the it's the two of swords, basically. So if you know what that card looks like, there's a lot of reflection here. So it's the two of swords. And going by this deck now, I'll work with this deck now, just as an example. Uh, the beginning is basically saying that the person is, and this was kind of where the interpretation came from with this particular person at the time, was that there's too much going on up here, like yap, 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 yap in your head, right? Thoughts constantly. We never stop thinking. And there's a lot of noise up here in the head because swords represent thoughts. And what needs to happen is you feel the need to make a decision about something, but you can't make a decision because there's this yap, 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 yap going on in the head. So what has to happen, and this is probably more in relation to the other deck, but even with this one, is that you have to take time out and just block your eyes, block your ears, and just step back from the noise, essentially. In the background of this card, you've got water in the background, uh, and the water in the tarot is usually, well, one of its connections is the intuition, it's the subconscious, it's the feeling. So in this card, it's like you've just got to disconnect from the thoughts and go into what is it that I'm feeling right now, and allow the feelings to lead you to perhaps the thought, uh, and feel into what it is that you're feeling. And so in this case, the feeling was not so much about needing to make a decision. It's more about understanding that there was a feeling there of, sort of hopelessness, and that they needed to go into that feeling to find out what the thoughts were around that feeling. And that the second card that came up was um, let's see if I put it here, the Eight of Wands card. And by doing that, by blocking out the chit chat and just taking that time out to maybe meditate, to listen, to feel, that that would fast track a way to the solution. And the solution in this case was there's something that they had to walk away from, okay, which was the Eight of Cups. And the walking away was something, actually in this particular case, something from the past that had happened that they hadn't finished resolving, they hadn't finished healing it. They had to walk away from it. So they had to deal with the feelings, uh, and grieve the loss of an old way of being, essentially. So, in the context of whoever you're reading for, or if you're reading for yourself, you just look at what you're doing at the moment in the present time, and following the prompts of the cards. So, in this case, if we were reading, say we were reading this for ourselves, we could say, okay, the cards are saying that I need to take time out from the chit chat. I need to take time out from the thoughts, the busyness of the thoughts. And I really need to just allow myself to go into the feeling, go into the intuition, and just give myself some quiet space in order to make a decision about what it is that I'm going to do in order to move forward. And by going into that quiet space, it might reveal to you that maybe there's something in the past that hasn't been resolved. Maybe there was a trauma in the past that wasn't resolved, if whether it's a big T trauma or a little T trauma. Something might have happened, you haven't fully grieved it yet. So now's the time to grieve it. Or maybe sometimes I find that when the seasons change, that anything that has come up that relates to a particular ambience of a season, if it hasn't been resolved, it will come up again in that season. And so the two of swords could be telling you that you just need to just take that space away from your thoughts and just allow yourself to be present with your feeling and with your intuition, in order to make the decision of how you're going to work through this. And the decision that the cards are suggesting in this case is that quite quickly, once you take the time out to contemplate, is actually the decision to walk away from something that needs to be walked away from. And in this particular reading, as I said, it was really to do with a past situation that's ended, naturally ended. And the difficulty with walking away, is that when we have to walk away from something in the past, we have to also leave a bit of ourselves. We have to walk a little bit away from who we were in that past. And it's like we have past lives within this one living life. And so, if, say, for example, if it was a relationship that had ended and there was some trauma around that hasn't been resolved, then that trauma has to be resolved. But also, there's a part of you that you were when you were in that relationship. And when you're not in that relationship with that person anymore, you're not that you anymore. And so that's a part that you were then when you're with that person, then has to also, you have to move on from that version of yourself and become the version of yourself that you're walking towards the version of yourself that you're becoming as a result of that part of your life, or that past life having ended. And so that was really what the story was with these cards, when I was doing the reading with these particular cards the other day. So it's always going to be different, but this is how you can work with your cards to understand the story. So you could tell that story to yourself. Okay, here I am needing to take time away from my busy thoughts. And when I do that, it's going to fast track me towards realizing that I have to let something go. on an emotional level. I have to move on. And that's going to be it's not gonna be easy emotionally. There's probably going to be tears and a letting go and a grieving process, that this is what this feeling inside that I'm experiencing is telling me I need to do. So that's an example of how you can use the cards, uh, if you're just experiencing that something that you just can't put your finger on. And there's lots of different modalities that you can use along with the tarot cards to make it easier for you to process whatever the feelings or the emotions that come up for you. I use EFT, hypnotherapy. There's lots of other different ways. Journaling. A lot of people like to journal. So you could certainly pick a card and then journal about it. So another way that you can go about this is to take, say, the first card that comes up in your reading and say, "Okay, I'm just gonna journal for 5 minutes about this card. Whatever I think about this card, whatever it's saying to me today, I'm just gonna journal." So you might pick one aspect of it. You might really be focusing today on the water in the background for some reason. You're just attracted to it. So maybe journal about the water. I'm looking at the water and what does it feel like? What is the water making me do? How am I seeing the water? And focusing on whatever you're attracted to that day with the card, because that's the part that your subconscious is telling you to focus on. Or maybe you might be focusing on the fact that she's got the hands or the arms, wrists really, crossed over her heart. So that means that there's this crossing over the heart chakra, a protecting of the heart. It's like, trying to protect the heart in some way. So how am I protecting my heart, and why am I feeling the need to protect it? Or am I overprotecting it? And that's a problem. And so you can start to then just journal where your feelings are going. If you like poetry, if you like writing poetry, then write a poem about how the card is turning up for you in regards to your question. Just write a poem and just see what it comes out. If you are right-handed, write with your left hand and see what comes up when you write with your left hand. You might write backwards with your left hand. I actually find it more comfortable to write backwards with my left hand because I'm right-handed. Um, do that. It doesn't really matter which way you go. Or if you're left-handed, write with your right hand. And, just write with your non-dominant hand, basically, because that will connect you to your subconscious mind really well too, and it kind of lets the inner child come out more too when you write with your non-dominant hand because it's so messy, you probably would have trouble even reading it. But it's that kinesthetic connection that you're really after. That's why you wanna handwrite it, not type it. So that would be that card, and often it's the first card say in this reading, you start to get an insight into, okay, this is where the situation is. I need to, you know, take that time out. And so maybe there and then you do decide to take the time out straight away and contemplate the situation. You get clarity maybe on what it is. Then you can use the cards again to then maybe give you an understanding. Well, okay, I've realized now that I'm still holding on to some old feelings from the past. And the reason I'm holding on to them is because I believe it's not safe maybe to let them go, or I'm going to disappoint somebody if I let them go. Maybe I'm going to feel a bit of guilt or shame uh, if I let them go. And so to work on, well, what do I do? How do I let these feelings go? What do I need to do? And then ask the tarot maybe to give you a suggestion as to what it is that you can do. And again, you can do a 3-card spread and give yourself a little story, or just pick one card and glean what it is that you need to do from that message of the one card. Okay, I need to read the comments. Um, Blessed be Juniper. It's under bed. Okay, Stephanie. Ambidextrous. Oh, yes, ambidextrous, like my mum. But I prefer to write with my right hand. Yeah, so if you prefer to write with your right hand, my mum's like that too. That's the only thing she does with her she does everything actually, she does everything with her left hand, but writes with the right hand. So she would need to write with her left hand. So, yeah, write with your non-dominant hand. Oh, okay. You prefer to write with your left hand. Okay, then write with your right hand when you're doing the shadow journaling, just to connect with the subconscious mind more. Um, so if you were then you've sort of maybe spent some time contemplating on what it is that you're feeling. And if you are working with Hecate, she's going to make it easier for you. She's going to make it easier for you to locate what the feeling is. And sometimes it might be some shame over something. Maybe you're sort of feeling not good enough about something, or you're feeling like you shouldn't let go of something because if you do, that means that you're not a good person, and all of these things. So if you can find out what your beliefs are around the situation, then write down what those beliefs are so that you can then work towards changing them and healing them. Okay, once my parents found out I was left-handed, I was forced to write with my right hand. Oh dear. I didn't realize that people still did that. They used to call people who wrote with the left hand witches or children of the devil. And even up until the 90s, children were forced to write with the right hand because of this old taboo. Really? Wow. Whereabouts was that? Because I thought that was something that happened, like, back in the 1920s or 30s or something. I didn't realize it was something that happened all the way up into the 90s. Um, yeah. I can't remember if my mother was forced to write with her right hand or not, because she was born in the 30s. Um, oh, no, she does write with the right hand. Maybe that's why. I've got oh, now I'm confused. Okay. So if you ask then the questions, that might be revealing to you what you need to do in order to find the truth. If you're wanting to then know, well, what can I do about it? In that example, it was the Eight of Cups. The Eight of Cups is saying you've got to leave it behind. You've got to walk away from it. You've got to say, hey, that was the past. That happened. And while that might have been wonderful, it might have been a wonderful relationship or a wonderful situation of the past, it's done its thing. It's had its day. It's brought you to a certain point in life. And now it's time to move forward from that, because life is a continuous progression and life is flux. And we can't stay in the same place all the time. We can't stay there. And often when we journey through life, we journey through life with different people along the way. And sometimes we have to then separate from those people. They go their way, you go your way. And that part of you that was that person at the time uh, also is a part of you that is no longer you at this point in time, because you're not that you anymore. You've moved on too. And that could be even from a career or a job that you may have had in the past that has ended and closed off. And there may be the grief there too, and the needing to leave that version of yourself that was in that career or that job, and having to then move into who you're becoming, because we're constantly becoming who we are, and moving into that new becoming. And this is where the shadow work helps us move into that becoming more of who we are. And often becoming more of who we are and becoming that realization of who we are means that we're going to meet lots of different situations and people along the way, and not all of them are going to stay with us along the path. There's going to be some that we're with briefly, there's going to be some that we're with for longer term, and then there'll be new people in the future that we haven't even met yet. And the same goes with what we do, perhaps as activities in our lives too, or careers or jobs, where we're moving into new experiences all of the time too. And so we have to, through the shadow work, understand that because one chapter in the book has ended, that there's other chapters in the book. And how do we become more of ourselves and embrace more of who we are to be able to move forward towards that new chapter. Okay. Magic, of course. Oh, in the US. Okay. Even some Christian schools still do it. Oh my gosh. Thinking that the children are possessed by the devil. Oh, okay, because 'cause they've got that. Oh my gosh, I think that the invention of the devil was just the worst thing I think that ever happened, because it's led so much destruction and so much hatred and so much. It's just, yeah, it's so destructive. It's sad because left-handed people are genius and actually so gifted, very creative often. Yeah. And, it was forced out of them. Mm. It's an example of ideology, really, and trying to put people in boxes because of a particular group's ideology about how something should be. And often when you look at the logic in that ideology, there's no logic in there at all. It's all based on belief or based on an ideal or something that they want to be true, but it isn't. But they're trying to force it to be true, even if it goes against what is true. And, that's an example of how we humans do that. And that's a good it's a good example of the shadow as well, because when you've got people that are obsessed with, say, in this example, the devil, there's an obsession with this evil thing, right? This horrible, horrible evil thing. And you'll often find that people who are obsessed with that, who are like that, demonstrate, being that a lot in their lives. Like, for example, in they're being devils themselves in forcing the children to write with their right hand, even though they're naturally left-handed, and that's like being the devil. So they're becoming what they're afraid of, and that's a really great example of the shadow, that we become what we try to deny. So if we're trying to deny that, we are selfish, we often are more selfish than we are aware of. And so that's a great example, that we become what it is that we're trying to push away. I guess you could say the devil, if you want to look at metaphorically, and even the tarot cards, of course, have a devil, the devil card in there. It's a metaphor for that which we fear, and that which is destructive within ourselves. And what these people do who have this religious ideology is that they're so busy trying to run away from this devil. They're trying to run away from it within themselves, and they become it. They simply become it. And that's what happens to us. We become what we run away from. So the shadow work is about saying, okay, I don't want to become what I'm running away from. I need to actually turn around and face it. If you do it dealing with yeah, it is, because well, I've met the odd person that's like that, that has that fundamentalism, and they're almost they act like they're devil. They become it. It's, it's that running away from that which we fear that causes us to create the destruction in our lives that we're not wanting to create. And so when we can turn around, face the shadow, and understand that we all have a shadow, we all have those shadow qualities, and some of us are able to be more have weaknesses, I suppose, in some more than others, and that we need to understand that we all have it, and it's not that some devil has put it there or that even some god has put it there. It's the fact that our ego has to have these qualities in order to survive in the world. We have to have a certain degree of narcissism in order to be able to stand up to people and not be bullied. We have to have a certain degree of selfishness in order to be able to survive in life and take care of ourselves in life. We have to have a certain element of understanding that we need resources. So even the gift, I suppose you could say, in greed is in understanding that we can take what we need and not be afraid that there's not going to be any left over, so we can still have enough for everyone. It's understanding that these things are just the ego's extremes of trying to protect itself. And then when we understand that, we don't go into those extremes anymore of narcissism, selfishness, or any of that. We can just realize that, take the survival aspects of them, and that can empower us to then boldly step out in the world and be who we are without worrying about what other people are going to say or think, not being bullied by other people, being able to stand up to yourself for yourself, and not to feel guilt or shame about doing that. And that's what the shadow work, they're the gifts of the shadow work. Your tarot cards can also help you understand where you might be holding yourself back from something. So if something's not working out for you in your life, it could be career, it could be love, it could be health even. How are you holding yourself back? What beliefs do you have that are stopping you from being able to fully embrace what it is you need to embrace about yourself to be able to do what it is that you're wanting to achieve? Like if it's love, for example, so much problems with relationships is that deep down inside, we don't feel lovable. We don't feel deserving of love. We don't feel good enough. And so you'll find that you might do a love spell, but maybe you're attracting the same sort of partner all the time. And they're not, you know, that they might make you might end up in that relationship. It might not be a good relationship, or it could be, emotionally abusive or something. And the shadow work is to help you change those beliefs in yourself that are creating that attraction to that sort of person, because we're attracted to the people that we feel are reflecting back to us what it is that we believe about ourselves. So if you're believing you're not good enough, if you believe that you don't deserve, then often you're going to be attracted to people that are going to treat you that way. So it's not that you're attracting them. So it's more that you're attracted to them, and that will change as you do the shadow work so that you're no longer attracted to those people. And that's not just in love relationships, it can be friends as well. You may find that there's friends that you've had maybe in the past, or friends that you have that aren't particularly healthy to have around you. And by doing the shadow work, you actually start to change your beliefs about yourself, and you find you no longer have those friends anymore, because they're no longer mirroring what you see or what you believe about yourself, because you've upped how you see yourself. And so the new friends that come into your life are going to be more mirroring where you are now. And that's what we do with other humans. We kind of mirror each other and show each other where we're at, and we can utilize other humans to know where we're at. So the people that we're attracted to, friends, relationships, often tell us a lot about ourselves and what we believe about ourselves. So that's where shadow work can come in. Okay, hit the nail on the head. My parents are the biggest holy rollers in the countryside, biggest hypocrites. Yeah, it's kind of that self righteousness, but it's just their fear of themselves and their own devil within, essentially, because we all have a devil within, and it's understanding that and being able to ride its back. Gurdjieff had this term, riding the devil's back, and he was a great mystic. And I like that idea of saying, yeah, riding the devil's back, because that's essentially what you're doing when you're working with the shadow. You're learning how to ride the dragon rather than the dragon riding you. And we want to tame the dragon, because the dragon guards the treasure. And we want to understand that it's not about slaying the dragon, it's about taming the dragon, and that dragon working for us rather than us being working for the dragon, because we don't want to work for the dragon. We're supposed to be the ones leading our lives here, not the ego, which is there to be to help us survive. It's not there to lead us. It's not there to tell us what to do or where to go all the time. It's a it's there to work for us. And a lot of the time it works against us because it's been programmed to do it that way. Okay. So if you want to become confident tarot readers, I've got the Confident Tarot Reader course out now. It starts live over Zoom next week on the 30th of May for those of you in the US and Canada, and the 31st of May for those of you in Australia, and probably also the UK as well, uh, and Europe. And it is a full tarot course, so it's covering basically how to read the tarot cards, create your own spreads, and understand tarot more from a storytelling point of view and how you connect with your cards so that you can understand what the cards mean when they turn up in a reading, especially if they're turning up in a reading, if you're reading for other people, because I think that's when we get nervous and we start to block. It's like, oh no, it's okay if I'm doing a reading for myself, but if I'm doing a reading for someone else, sometimes we get our ego gets a bit of performance anxiety. And so we block up and go, oh no, I don't know. I have no idea what these cards mean. They're all looking at me and I have no idea what they mean together. When really deep down, if we told the story and got into it, we would be able to uh, work with the cards to tell the story. And even when we're reading for ourselves, sometimes it's difficult to be not biased towards reading for ourselves. Sometimes we can try to see into the cards what we want to see in them rather than what they're saying. And that often leads us to bad habits of maybe doing more than one reading on the same question. Um, I mean, I've done that. I mean, probably a lot of other people have done that too. We didn't like what the cards said, so we thought we'd try it again. And, as if the cards are gonna change their opinion, it's, because we simply didn't like what the cards revealed the first time, so there's some bad habits there. And when we're doing shadow work, we need to make sure that we're able to be honest with ourselves, even if it looks scary, even if the cards look like they're nasty cards. Like you get the Tower, for example. The Tower doesn't always have to be a major catastrophe. It doesn't have to be this big thing that's going to be really, really painful emotionally. It can be a small thing. It can be a small hiccup that you may not even notice so much, just it could be an inconvenience. It really just depends on what the question is and what the situation is. So, don't be afraid of the cards when they turn up. Just go with them and see what they're saying to you. I find that with shadow work, the cards, because you're dealing more with inner stuff, those cards can just simply mean you do need to let go of something. So if you get, say, the Tower in a shadow reading, it comes up, it could just mean there's a lot of change that you're going to be experiencing, and that, yes, you're going to have to crack the Tower. You're going to have to lightning bolt those beliefs. And when you do, then it's the things that you thought were true are going to be revealed that they weren't what you thought they were. And that could be a really good thing. Like you could have that Tower moment and actually feel relieved afterwards, because you have an awakening. The tarot can be like an enlightening moment because you've got the lightning bolt in there. So you've got it can be be enlightenment as well. So it could be just be simply that. So it's just working with the cards and allowing yourself to try and listen to what it is that they're saying. A third eye has been opening up, and thankfully it doesn't scare me anymore. But I've had a few experiences where my third eye has shown me dragons flying. So what does it mean? Is seeing dragons? It depends. Symbols always are individual, so it really depends on how you connect with dragons and what dragons mean for you, for one thing, because the subconscious mind is always going to work with you and what your connections are with things. Dragons do guard the treasure and they are pretty fierce. So the dragons can be symbolizing that it's time for you to ride the dragon or tame the dragon, to look at the dragon within and try and listen to what the dragon's trying to tell you. What's the dragon warning you about? And if you need to, you may need to reprogram the dragon and let the dragon know that it's okay for you to do something and you can be safe at the same time. Your dragon's trying to keep you safe. They're they're guarding you in some way. So it's understanding, what are they guarding you from? Is it real? Or is it your subconscious mind's program that has you believing that it's real when maybe it's a false program that is no longer real anymore? And that's where the shadow work comes in. Dragons are great to work with the imagery of the dragon. They're so powerful. I love dragons. Love dragons. Yeah. So if you want to become a confident tarot reader, do check out the Confident Tarot Reader course. I have a number of different courses now. I have a shadow work course, which is working with the chakras, and also the Mystery Witch School 101 course for those of you who want to learn witchcraft. That's the 12-month course, that one. Whereas the shadow work course is 4 months, and the Confident Tarot Reader will be 4 months as well, because I like to give people a lot of time to work on something, because I know a lot of people are busy and they don't have, like, you could easily put the Confident Tarot Reader into 7 weeks, but that means that you're really having to focus quite intensely for those 7 weeks, and I know a lot of people don't have time to do that. So that's why I've made it every fortnight, so that's every 2 weeks. We get together over Zoom live, and I do a class, and then that class is recorded and it's uploaded then to the course website, so that those of you who don't get to go on the Zoom, or you don't want to go on the Zoom, which is fine, you can then watch all of it on the replay and get your lessons and that and everything in the course platform to go ahead. And even if you don't do the Zooms, you can still ask questions, because at the end of each module in the course, there's a section where you can put in your questions and even your experiences and your homework as well. So any of the exercises or activities that you've done to give feedback about your activities, so that I know you have actually done the work. Because if you want it I will be issuing online certificates at the end for those who are interested in doing that. But if you want to get like certification of having attended the course, then I need to know that you've done some work. So, there's always gonna be activities at the end of each module, that you'll have to do, to show that you've done the work. Okay, so thank you everybody for attending the live. I really enjoy doing lives on YouTube now. And, yes, do join the Confident Tarot Reader. You can join after the 31st as well. You don't have to join at the 31st, because, as I said, the replays are going to be there anyway. And a lot of my courses are DIY. This is the first one I'm doing live. So it doesn't really matter whether you join live or not. It's just for a lot of people like to learn live. So that's why I'm giving you the opportunity to do it live. Okay, blessed be. I will see you next week, and enjoy your tarot cards.